Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Nicholas. In this video we will look at another very tragic story. Brooke Elizabeth was born on April 24, 1978. She was raised in a caring family and showed a vivid thirst for knowledge. Brooke was eager to break out of her hometown of Vincennes in Indiana. This region was known as the historic center of Knox County, where the first Christian communities were founded. Despite a modest population of 18,000, Vincennes was far from calm due to unsolved crimes. Against this background, the Baker family studied, making do with a modest income. Brooke's ambition soared, and her parents supported her. Her vivid imagination found an outlet in writing, and she began contributing to the school newspaper by sharing her thoughts and views. Journalism has become her vocation, defining her future aspirations. Even before graduating from high school, she began studying journalism programs at nearby colleges. Brooke saw her future in New York, aspiring to a career in Rolling Stone magazine. Her confidence in openly expressing ambitious goals set her apart from others. She was deeply convinced of her talent and steadily pursued perfection. Her immediate goal was to get a journalism degree from Vincennes State University, known for its long history. The university's journalism students had the opportunity to contribute to its prestigious newspaper. Brooke took advantage of this opportunity by securing a place in the journalism department. Her initial goal was to take over as editor of the university newspaper, an important milestone that she believed would pave the way for her broader aspirations. Morris and Janet, her parents, were filled with pride for their daughter, seeing in Brooke an outstanding personality destined for revolutionary achievements, unaware of the turns that the future was preparing. Baker stood out among her peers for her extraordinary determination. From day one, she became a source of inspiration for many freshmen. In college, Brooke began to be active, always on the move, making new acquaintances and building the necessary connections. Her family, especially her brother Brown, who often visited her and made friends on campus even before she enrolled, was an important pillar. However, Brooke was not someone who immersed herself exclusively in her studies or spent her days in the library. She loved socializing and was noticeably attractive. Her charismatic charm, flowing blonde hair, gray-green eyes, and dimpled smile attracted the attention of many guys. Brooke enjoyed her social life and dated several classmates, but avoided serious relationships, preferring her career ambitions. She found it easier to get along with men than with women, and even shared an apartment with one of them named Jason during her first year of college, until she was able to secure independent living. Brooke has put a lot of effort into creating reports for the student newspaper, focusing on controversial topics in order to develop her own unique style. She was adept at forming friendships, but she also knew how to provoke controversy, as some were afraid of becoming characters in their publications. Her goal has turned into an aspiration to become an investigative journalist, resolutely revealing the truth and following events on campus and possible scandals. Despite the fact that some doubted her intentions, suspecting her of seeking material for articles, many believed that Brooke was fighting injustice through her investigative work. Despite skepticism and accusations of sensationalism from critics, perhaps motivated by envy, her determination to highlight the hidden problems of the campus remained unwavering. During her sophomore year, Baker decided to reveal the reality hanging over the campus, a truth that, in her opinion, could have legal consequences after it was made public. This investigation began in the spring of 1997, when Brooke completed her first year of college. Her social circle included men associated with fraternities known not only for their lavish parties, but also for significant influence on campus, whose power, according to her observations, was often used to exploit the more vulnerable and defenseless. Baker was determined to protect those who were too scared to share their experiences. Fraternity initiation processes are known for their strict requirements for candidates who must pass various tests to prove their suitability for membership. Among these challenges, some tasks tested the boundaries of decency, from bold actions such as impulsively kissing a stranger to more serious accusations. Quiet tales of forced sexual contact began to emerge, creating a grim picture of young men seeking to assert their dominance over unsuspecting women as a ritual of admission to these fraternal orders. Victims of such violations usually remained silent, fearing a stain that could ruin their reputation. Brooke directed her investigative gaze at one of the most prominent fraternities on campus accused of these outrageous acts against women. Armed with information and an indomitable desire to uphold justice, Baker refused to remain silent in the face of what she perceived as a serious violation. In the spring of 1997, Brooke began her investigation into disturbing incidents at campus fraternities, continuing her efforts in the fall of her sophomore year. Despite the internal risks and cautionary advice from some teachers, Brooke's determined nature only spurred her determination to delve deeper into the investigation. Intriguingly, her connection to the fraternity in question was closer than most. Her roommate Jason was not only a member, but also closely associated with those at the center of the allegations, making him a valuable informant. With Jason's help, Brooke planned to personally observe the fraternity's activities during their infamous Thirsty Thursday parties, known for their late-night festivities, accompanied by her friend Shauna, another editor of the student newspaper, and her supportive brother, now also a student. The group plunged into the festive atmosphere. Brooke and Shauna communicated with different participants, unobtrusively gathering information. Their investigation was crowned with success when they obtained the contact details of a young woman who claimed she had been sexually coerced by a fraternity member. Brooke had no idea that their investigative activities had not gone unnoticed, attracting attention in a crowded, noisy environment, including from the fraternity brothers themselves. After the party, Brooke faced threats to stop the investigation, which caused concern among friends because of the risk of expulsion. However, circumstances have changed. She was able to provide for herself financially independently of Jason by moving into a mansion conveniently located opposite the journalism lab and close to most classes. She felt more confident knowing that support was there. The reason for the move was verbal and electronic threats. One sunny summer day, a car with men who threatened her drove up to her friend's house. As the new semester began, Baker continued to investigate attacks on women by fraternity men. It was her last year at university, after which she planned to move to New York. But the investigation was interrupted when she became a victim of a crime. She had no idea that an investigation that was supposed to help others would become her own story. On the evening of September 7, 1997, at 21:34, the Indiana State Police Department received an urgent call. The disturbing voice on the line belonged to Brown Baker, Brooke's younger brother, who reported the gruesome find at his sister's house. At the age of 18, the terrible discovery he made that night, he will probably never forget. Brown often visited Brooke at her home near campus, as their parents worried about her living alone, and he sought to allay their fears. He had visited her earlier that day, but Brooke had not been there. When he returned in the evening, he knocked on the door again, but there was no answer. Sensing that something was wrong, he used his key to enter. Calling his sister and getting no answer, he walked on and heard the sound of running water. Thinking Brooke might be in the shower, he knocked loudly, but there was silence in response. When he opened the bathroom door, he found it empty except for the wet towels in the tub. After he turned off the water, Brown headed to the bedroom, where he immediately noticed Brooke, naked and lifeless on the bed. In the dim light, it was clear that she was not asleep. His first reaction was to cover her with a blanket, believing that no one should see his sister in such a state. He then left the house and called 911. By 2200 hours, police arrived and immediately cordoned off the place with yellow tape, blocking the house and the adjacent yard to prevent further violations. However, news of the tragedy quickly spread beyond the police barriers, reaching the student community and almost instantly Brooke's parents, signaling that a terrible event had occurred. Morris and Janet hurried to their beloved daughter's house, determined to find out the identity of her attacker. During Janet's desperate attempts to get to her daughter's body, detectives carefully examined the crime scene. The presence of wet towels in the bathroom and a bottle of bleach nearby led investigators to assume that the perpetrators were trying to erase their tracks. The discovery of 2 empty bottles of dish detergent in an overflowing sink indicated significant efforts to clean up the crime scene, and a hidden knife was found under a pile of plates. Brooke's body had several stab wounds inflicted with great force with a sharp object, and she was sexually assaulted by her attacker, which allowed forensic experts to collect DNA evidence from semen. Preliminary assessments showed that she had been dead for no more than a day. In search of leads, detectives interviewed Brown to compile a list of potential suspects and people close to Brooke. They were unprepared for Brooke's extensive network of social connections, realizing how many interviews lay ahead. The news of the death of Brooke Baker, a dedicated journalism student who was always looking for the most difficult stories, caused a wave of distrust among teachers. The investigation took a significant turn when police began a detailed reconstruction of the events leading up to Brooke's unexpected death, seeking to recreate the narrative of her last day. On September 6, 1997, on a quiet Saturday, there were no academic classes, but Brooke had a busy schedule. She moved to different places on campus and communicated with people. The last time a campus security guard saw her was at 1 o'clock in the morning when she was returning home with another student. 19 hours later, her body was found. During this time, Brooke survived a brutal attack, suffered numerous bruises and 13 penetrating wounds with a skewer. Despite the attacker's attempts to clean the knife, a small piece of cloth remained. The DNA evidence extracted from the sperm was registered under the number 137F. But none of the thousands of men familiar with the victim matched this sample. The suspects covered many, but there were no coincidences. Over time, the investigation reached a dead end. The Baker family has reached out to the press to draw attention to the case. They organized public meetings to discuss their daughter's tragic end and the many unresolved issues. They wondered if their daughter's end would just be another number on the list of unsolved cases. In a city where life did not stop, there was an uneasy hope that the perpetrator might strike again. Despite this, life went on while Brooke Baker was in eternal rest, until 2 years later a new incident occurred, surprisingly similar to what Vincennes law enforcement was investigating. On that fateful Monday morning, July 5, 1999, the detectives entered another apartment, just 7 blocks from the site of Brooke's grim discovery. This apartment belonged to another student at Vincennes University, Erica Norman. Born on November 13, 1977 to Dean and Elaine, Erica grew up with 3 siblings. During her school years, she distinguished herself as a brilliant ambassador, participated in softball, gymnastics, joined a drama club, and was an active member of the Spanish Honor Society. By 1999, Erica turned 21, and she immersed herself in learning foreign languages while attending broadcasting courses at the university. She held the position of vice president of the women's club and dreamed of traveling the world. However, Erica disappeared without a trace. Vincennes police were alerted by a neighbor who noticed that the sound of running water had been coming from Erica's apartment for a long time. Having received no answer to his knocks and finding the door strangely open, he decided to enter. Inside, he found the taps in the bathroom fully open. After he turned off the water, he was alerted by the blood splatters on the wall, which forced him to immediately go out and call 911. In Erica's chaotic apartment, officers tried to reconstruct the course of events. The signs of a violent struggle were obvious. Pillows from the sofa had been thrown off, things were scattered, and the walls were covered in blood next to a broken toilet mirror. However, the unusual picture in the bathroom, a pillow floating on the water next to a sports bag, reminded of the ominous acquaintance with the Brooke case. This connection led the officers to instinctively assume that the same person might be involved in both incidents. As in Brooke's case, there were no signs of forced entry, and it seemed that the perpetrator was again trying to hide his actions. Unlike the previous time, Erica's whereabouts remained unknown. To begin the investigation, it was necessary to restore the chronology of Erica's last days. It was established that she had not been seen or heard from since the evening of Saturday, July 3, 1999. Erica worked as a waitress at the restaurant until about 2200 hours that evening. After work, she joined her friends at the bar, where they stayed until closing time. Norman then offered to gather at her house to continue the celebration, but her friends, who had commitments for the next day, refused. Erica was last seen getting into Brian Jones' car. Erica and Brian have known each other for a long time, having first met when they both worked at Garfield Restaurant, Brian as a cook and Erica in another role. Although Erica later looked for other work opportunities, they remained in the same social circle. Jones moved to Vincennes for higher education, focusing on architectural drawing. Known for his academic dedication, he eventually dropped out in 1996, giving way to an enticing job opportunity that promised a substantial salary at the time. During his time in college, Brian was in a relationship that lasted about 2 years before ending. Living just 2 blocks from campus, Brian, despite no longer being a student, remained an active participant in campus social life. His friends always spoke of him only from the best side, but the investigators considered it necessary to bring him in for questioning. The guy was worried, but said that he really took Erica home that evening to watch a movie together. However, he assured her that she fell asleep halfway through the movie show and he had to leave. Brian did not hide that he tried to establish intimacy with her, but she refused. Nevertheless, Jones promptly provided a DNA sample for analysis. During the search, the police examined the surroundings of her house, assuming that if the girl was no longer alive, the attacker had to move her body somewhere. But the search yielded nothing. However, the documents revealed a very interesting coincidence. It turned out that Brian Jones and Brooke Baker also knew each other and sometimes spent time together. The police found Brooke's former roommate and asked about the nature of their relationship. Jason did not provide any new information, only mentioned that Brian lived with him in the fall of 1997, around the time Baker moved out, but after the death of the girl, the guy immediately left town. After talking to Brian's former employers, the detectives learned that it was a well-paid job that he suddenly quit, leaving everything behind. After September 5, 1997, he no longer appeared at work and was automatically fired, while Baker's body was found on September 7, 1997. Since he was not a student at the time and had left the city, the detectives did not pay attention to him. After a thorough examination, a tiny bloodstain was found on Brian's shoes. The analysis showed that it was Erica Norman's blood, and the sperm sample matched the DNA sample number 137F. On July 13, 1999, Brian Jones was arrested for the brutal murder of 19-year-old Brooke Baker. When Brian was transferred from the detention center to the court on the day of his indictment, attempts were made to restrain Brooke's mother, who sought to violently attack him. At the same time, Erica's parents begged law enforcement agencies to find their daughter, fearing that she had died and wanting to provide her with a decent burial. About a week later, on July 20th, an Illinois man contacted authorities to report a grim find in a cornfield. 29-year-old James Hill, repairing irrigation systems on the outskirts of the field, a task that he usually performed in September, but postponed to the middle of summer due to certain problems, came across a terrible smell and, after investigating, found a badly decomposed corpse. Given the extreme heat and humidity in the area, the remains would have completely dissolved into the ground by autumn, leaving no trace. This cornfield was 3 miles from the home of the missing student. Forensic experts have confirmed that the remains found belonged to Erica Norman. Brian was wearing a protective vest during transportation to court. In an effort to avoid the death penalty, he admitted his role in Erica's death, but continued to deny any involvement in Brooke's murder. As a result, he was sentenced to 60 years for confessing to Erica's death and to life without parole for the murder of Brooke Baker. The story unfolded when Brian began to follow the life of an aspiring journalist. He planned to take advantage of her vulnerability. At first, she suspected those who threatened her, but eventually shifted suspicion to the entire university community. However, Brian took her life when she may have shifted suspicion to the entire university community. He was confident in his ability to escape capture due to his lack of connection to the school and the fraternity, which was the original prime suspect due to their intimidation of the victim. What are your thoughts on this story? Please express your views, leave comments, subscribe, and like. We thank you for watching. Remember to take care of your own well-being and the well-being of your loved ones.